The bullet had entered just below her collarbone, and the scar it left behind looked like a jagged star carved into flesh, a permanent reminder that someone had once wanted her dead. Lily Donovan pulled the cotton blouse higher on her shoulder as she stood in the cramped room above the saloon in Yosemite, California, watching the dust motes dance in the afternoon light, filtering through the single grimy window. It was August 1878, and the summer heat made the small space feel like an oven, but she kept herself covered, always covered, because that scar told a story she had no intention of sharing with anyone in this rough mining town nestled in the Sierra Nevada foothills. She had arrived in Yosemite 3 weeks ago on a stagecoach from Sacramento, carrying nothing but a worn carpet bag and enough money to rent this room for 2 months. The town was smaller than she had expected. A collection of weathered buildings clustered along a single main street, with the mountains rising like ancient sentinels in the distance. Gold had brought people here a generation ago, and while the easy pickings were long gone, enough remained to keep the town alive, if not exactly thriving. Lily had chosen Yosemite precisely because it was small, because it was out of the way, because she hoped that here, finally, she might disappear into the backdrop of ordinary life and leave her past buried where it belonged. She worked at the general store now, helping Mrs. Patterson with inventory and sales. The older woman had taken one look at Lily's proper handwriting and quick arithmetic and hired her on the spot, grateful for someone who could keep the books straight. It was honest work, quiet work, and Lily found a strange comfort in the routine of measuring out flour, cutting fabric, and tallying accounts. The store smelled of coffee and leather and sawdust, and the customers were mostly miners and their wives. People too focused on their own survival to ask too many questions about a young woman who had appeared out of nowhere. But small towns bred curiosity the way standing water bred mosquitoes, and Lily knew it was only a matter of time before someone started wondering about her. She kept her answers vague when asked about her family. She came from back east. Her parents had passed. She wanted a fresh start. All of it was technically true, though it left out the parts that mattered, the parts that would make respectable people recoil if they knew, the parts that involved a man named Thomas Crowley, and the night he had decided that if he could not have her, no one would. Lily pressed her palm against the scar through her blouse, feeling the ridged tissue beneath the fabric. The doctor in San Francisco had said she was lucky. Lucky the bullet had not hit an artery. Lucky she had not bled out on the floor of that hotel room. Lucky Thomas's aim had been affected by the whiskey he had been drinking all night. She had not felt lucky then, covered in her own blood, watching him flee into the night. She had felt like she was dying, and perhaps part of her had. The doctor had removed the bullet and stitched her up, and a kind nurse had let her recover in a storage room for 2 weeks while the wound began to heal. No one had called the law. The nurse had seen enough battered women to know that sometimes the law did more harm than good, especially when the man in question had money and connections. Thomas Crowley was the son of a railroad magnate, and Lily had been a seamstress he had taken a fancy to. Their courtship had seemed like a fairy tale at first, flowers and poetry and promises of a better life. She had been 20 years old and naive enough to believe that a man of his station could truly love someone like her. She had learned the truth slowly, the way water erodes stone. The way he gripped her arm too hard when he was displeased, the way he spoke to servants, the casual cruelty in his eyes when he thought no one was watching. By the time she tried to end their engagement, it was too late. He had become obsessed, possessive in a way that made her skin crawl. And when she finally told him she would never marry him, when she returned his ring and told him to leave her alone, He had shown up at her boarding house with a pistol and rage in his heart. That was 6 months ago. Lily was 21 now, and she had spent those months running, moving from town to town, never staying anywhere long enough to put down roots. But she was tired of running, tired of looking over her shoulder, tired of flinching every time a door opened unexpectedly. She wanted to believe that here, in this small town beneath the shadow of the mountains, she might finally be safe. The sound of horses in the street below drew her to the window. A group of men were riding in, and even from this distance, Lily could tell they were cowboys, their wide-brimmed hats and dusty chaps marking them as men who worked with cattle. Yosemite was not prime cattle country, but there were ranches in the valleys, and cowboys passed through regularly, bringing their herds to market or just stopping for supplies and a hot meal. One of the riders caught her attention. He sat his horse with an easy confidence, his shoulders broad beneath a worn leather vest. Even covered in trail dust, there was something compelling about him, a quiet strength that seemed to radiate from his posture. He dismounted in a smooth motion and tied his horse to the hitching post, and when he removed his hat to wipe his brow, Lily saw dark hair and a face that was handsome in a rugged, weathered way. He looked to be in his mid-20s, maybe a few years older than her. She stepped back from the window, annoyed with herself for staring. It did not matter how handsome a cowboy was. She had no intention of getting involved with anyone, not now, possibly not ever. Her heart was still healing from wounds that went far deeper than the scar on her shoulder, and she had no desire to repeat her mistakes. The next morning, Lily arrived at the general store to find Mrs. Patterson already there, rearranging the display of tinned goods in the front window. The older woman looked up with a smile, her weathered face crinkling with warmth. "Good morning, dear. We have got a busy day ahead. That cattle outfit came in last night, and they will be needing supplies before they head north." Lily nodded and tied on her apron, preparing herself for the rush. Sure enough, by mid-morning the store was full of cowboys, their voices loud and their laughter boisterous as they selected everything from tobacco to new rope. She kept her head down and focused on her work, measuring out beans and coffee, wrapping purchases in brown paper, making change from the cash box. "Excuse me, miss." The voice was low and polite, and when Lily looked up, she found herself meeting the gaze of the cowboy she had noticed the day before. Up close, he was even more striking, with dark eyes that held a directness she found both unsettling and somehow reassuring. There was a small scar on his chin, and his hands, resting on the counter, were calloused from hard work. "Yes, sir, how can I help you?" "Need some salt pork and hardtack for the trail. Enough for about 2 weeks." His voice had a slight drawl, marking him as someone from further south, maybe Texas or Oklahoma. Lily nodded and moved to gather the supplies, aware of his eyes following her movements. It made her self-conscious in a way she had not felt in months. "You are new in town," he said as she wrapped the salt pork. It was not a question. "I arrived a few weeks ago," Lily replied, keeping her tone neutral. "Where from?" "Back east." She placed the package on the counter and moved to get the hardtack, hoping he would take the hint and stop asking questions. That is a long way to travel. Yosemite is not exactly a destination for most folks. Lily felt a flicker of irritation. Why could people not mind their own business? "I wanted a fresh start. That is all." When she turned back with the hardtack, she found him watching her with an expression that was thoughtful rather than prying. "Nothing wrong with that. I came out west for the same reason 5 years ago." Sometimes a man needs to leave the past behind and start over. There was something in his tone that made Lily think he understood more than his words suggested. She rang up his purchases, and he paid with coins that clinked softly as they hit the counter. "Name is Isaac Sullivan," he said, tipping his hat. "I will be around town for a few days if you need anything. Lily Donovan, and I do not need anything but thank you." The corner of his mouth lifted in what might have been a smile. "Fair enough, Miss Donovan, but the offer stands." He gathered his purchases and left, and Lily found herself watching him go, puzzled by the strange warmth that had kindled in her chest during their brief conversation. She shook her head, annoyed with herself. She had no business feeling anything for anyone, least of all a cowboy who would be moving on in a few days. But Isaac Sullivan did not move on. The cattle outfit stayed in Yosemite longer than expected, waiting for word from a buyer up north, and Lily kept seeing Isaac around town. He seemed to have business at the general store almost daily, always polite, always finding small reasons to strike up conversation. He asked about her work, about the books she was reading, about her thoughts on the weather. Nothing too personal, nothing that made her uncomfortable, but enough to make it clear he was interested. Lily tried to discourage him without being rude. She kept her answers short, her manner professional. But Isaac was persistent in a way that was patient rather than pushy. He did not crowd her or demand her attention. He simply showed up, steady and reliable as sunrise, and gradually, despite her better judgment, Lily found herself looking forward to his visits. It was Mrs. Patterson who finally pushed her toward him. The older woman had noticed the cowboy's frequent appearances and cornered Lily one afternoon after he had left. "That young man is sweet on you," she said with a knowing smile. "He is just being friendly," Lily protested. "Friendly my foot." "I have been around long enough to know when a man is courting a woman, even if he is being subtle about it, and he seems like a good sort, better than most of the roughnecks around here. I am not looking for a courtship." Mrs. Patterson's expression softened. "I do not know what you are running from, child, and I do not need to know. But at some point, you have got to stop running and start living again. Not all men are bad, you know." The words stayed with Lily long after the conversation ended. That night, lying in her narrow bed above the saloon, she stared at the ceiling and wondered if Mrs. Patterson might be right. Was she going to spend the rest of her life hiding, always looking over her shoulder, never allowing herself to connect with anyone? Thomas Crowley had tried to destroy her, and in a way, he was still succeeding, because she was letting that one terrible night dictate everything that came after. The next time Isaac came into the store, Lily made an effort to be a little warmer, a little more open. When he asked if she had been up to see the falls that gave the area its beauty, she admitted she had not. "You have got to see them," Isaac said, his dark eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. "Especially this time of year. The water is not as high as it is in spring, but it is still something. I could take you up there if you would like. Sunday, maybe, if you have got the day off." Lily hesitated, her instinct for self-preservation warring with a growing desire to say yes. "I do not know. Just as friends," Isaac added quickly. "No expectations. I just think you would enjoy it and I would appreciate the company." Something about the way he said it, the earnestness in his voice, made her decision. "All right, Sunday." His smile was warm enough to melt the last of her resistance. "I will pick you up at your boarding house." 8 in the morning. That would be fine. After he left, Lily felt a flutter of nervousness mixed with something that might have been excitement. She had agreed to spend time alone with a man, something she had sworn she would never do again. But Isaac felt different somehow. There was a steadiness to him, a quiet honor that made her think she might be safe with him. Sunday dawned clear and warm, the sky a brilliant blue that seemed to stretch forever. Lily dressed carefully in her most practical walking dress, a simple brown cotton that would hold up to a hike. She braided her blonde hair and pinned it up, then hesitated over the buttons at her collar. The scar was well hidden by the high neckline, but she found herself checking and rechecking to make sure no trace of it showed. Isaac arrived precisely at 8, riding a sturdy bay horse and leading a gentle-looking mare. He helped Lily mount, his hands respectful as he guided her foot into the stirrup, and then they set off through town and onto a trail that wound up into the mountains. The ride was beautiful. Ponderosa pines towered overhead, their bark glowing golden in the morning light, and the air was fragrant with their scent. Isaac pointed out landmarks as they rode, telling stories about the area with an easy charm that made Lily relax despite herself. He had been working cattle drives since he was 18, he told her, after leaving his family's farm in Missouri. His father had wanted him to stay and work the land, but Isaac had wanted to see the world, to test himself against something bigger than plowed fields and corn harvests. "Do you regret it?" Lily asked. "Leaving your family?" Isaac was quiet for a moment, his gaze on the trail ahead. "Sometimes. I miss them, especially my mother, but I needed to find my own way, figure out who I was outside of being somebody's son. That probably sounds selfish." "It sounds honest," Lily said softly. They reached the falls around mid-morning, and Lily caught her breath at the sight. Water cascaded down a sheer rock face, throwing up clouds of mist that caught the sunlight and created rainbows. The sound was thunderous, drowning out everything else, and the power of it was both frightening and exhilarating. Isaac helped her down from her horse, and they stood together at the edge of the viewing area, watching the water plunge into the pool below. Lily felt something shift inside her, a loosening of the tight knot of fear and pain she had been carrying. Here in this wild and beautiful place, the past seemed very far away. "Thank you for bringing me here," she said, raising her voice to be heard over the roar of the falls. Isaac turned to look at her, and there was something in his expression that made her heart skip. "Thank you for coming with me." They ate the lunch he had packed, simple fare of bread and cheese and apples, sitting on a flat rock overlooking the falls. Isaac told her about the cattle drive, about the nights sleeping under the stars and the challenges of moving hundreds of stubborn animals across difficult terrain. Lily found herself telling him about her work at the store, about Mrs. Patterson's kindness, about the satisfaction of balancing the books and seeing everything line up perfectly. "You are good with numbers?" Isaac asked. "I always have been. My father was a school teacher before he died. He made sure I had a proper education. That is rare for a woman. He believed girls should be educated just as well as boys. It shocked some people, but he did not care. He said ignorance was the greatest waste, regardless of gender." Sounds like he was a wise man. He was. Lily felt the familiar ache of loss. Her father had died when she was 16, and her mother had followed 2 years later, worn out by grief and the struggle to survive. That was when Lily had gone to San Francisco, hoping to make her way as a seamstress. That was when she had met Thomas. She must have fallen quiet too long because Isaac reached over and gently touched her hand. "You all right?" The contact was brief, but it sent a jolt through her. Lily pulled her hand back, not harshly but firmly. "I am fine, just remembering." Isaac did not push, and they spent the rest of the afternoon exploring the area around the falls, talking about everything and nothing. By the time they headed back to town, Lily felt lighter than she had in months. Being with Isaac was easy in a way she had not expected. He did not demand anything from her, did not try to control the conversation or her actions. He simply existed alongside her, solid and real and surprisingly comforting. Over the next 2 weeks, they fell into a pattern. Isaac would come by the store most days, and on Sundays, they would go riding together, exploring the trails around Yosemite. He showed her hidden meadows carpeted with wildflowers, high overlooks where they could see for miles, and quiet groves where the only sound was the wind in the trees. Lily felt herself opening up to him bit by bit, sharing more about her life before Yosemite, though she carefully avoided any mention of Thomas or the real reason she had come west. Isaac shared his own stories in return. He told her about his family, about his 3 younger sisters and his parents' small farm. He talked about his dreams of one day having his own ranch, a place where he could settle down and build something permanent. There was a wistfulness in his voice when he spoke of it, a longing for roots that Lily understood all too well. "Why have you not done it yet?" she asked one Sunday as they sat beside a creek, watching the water dance over smooth stones. "Money mostly. Land is not cheap, and I have been sending most of my wages back home to help my family. My father has not been well the last few years, and they have been struggling. But I am saving up. Another few years, maybe, and I will have enough." "That is admirable, helping your family like that." Isaac shrugged. "They would do the same for me. That is what family does." Lily thought about her own family, lost to death and distance. She had no siblings, no cousins that she knew of. She was alone in the world, and that aloneness had made her vulnerable to Thomas's attentions. She had been so hungry for connection, for someone to care about her, that she had missed all the warning signs until it was too late. "You got quiet again," Isaac observed. "Sorry, just thinking." "About what?" Lily hesitated, then decided to risk a small truth. "About how being alone can make you do foolish things, make you trust people you should not trust." Isaac looked at her thoughtfully. "Sounds like someone hurt you pretty badly." "Yes. Do you want to talk about it?" "No." "All right." He did not press, just picked up a smooth stone and skipped it across the creek. It bounced 4 times before sinking. "But if you ever do want to talk about it, I am a good listener." The simple offer, made without expectation or demand, brought tears to Lily's eyes. She blinked them back, not wanting to explain, and Isaac pretended not to notice, giving her the grace of privacy. It was late September when everything changed. The cattle outfit had finally gotten word from their buyer and would be moving out in a few days. Isaac told her the news one evening as he walked her home from the store, and Lily felt her heart sink. She had known this was coming, had known from the beginning that Isaac was just passing through, but somewhere along the way, she had started to forget that. She had started to imagine that maybe, just maybe, things could be different. "I am going to miss you," Isaac said, his voice rough. "I will miss you too." They had reached her boarding house, and they stood in the gathering dusk, neither wanting to say goodbye. Isaac reached out and took her hand, and this time Lily did not pull away. His hand was warm and calloused and strong, and she felt an ache in her chest that was both painful and sweet. "Lily, I have got to tell you something." Isaac took a breath. "These last few weeks with you have been the best I have had in a long time. You are smart and kind and beautiful, and I find myself thinking about you all the time. I know I am just a cowboy without much to offer, and I know you have got your reasons for keeping your distance, but I have got to ask. Is there any chance you might feel the same way about me?" Lily's throat tightened. She wanted to say yes. She wanted to throw caution to the wind and let herself fall for this good, decent man who had somehow slipped past all her defenses. But the fear was still there, cold and sharp, reminding her of what happened the last time she let her guard down. "I do not know what I feel," she said honestly. "I want to feel something, but I am scared." "Of me?" "No, not of you, of what might happen if I let myself care about someone again." Isaac squeezed her hand gently. "I understand being scared, but you cannot let fear run your whole life, Lily. Sometimes you have got to take a chance." "I do not know if I can." "Then let me help you." Isaac's dark eyes were earnest, pleading, "Come with me tomorrow." There is something I want to show you, a place I have been going to think. Maybe it will help you figure things out." Lily nodded, not trusting her voice. Isaac lifted her hand to his lips and pressed a gentle kiss to her knuckles, a gesture so sweet and old-fashioned that it made her heart ache. Then he was gone, disappearing into the deepening night, and Lily climbed the stairs to her room feeling more confused than ever. The next day was Sunday, her day off, and Isaac picked her up early. They rode further than they had before, following a narrow trail that climbed high into the mountains. The air grew cooler as they ascended, and the views became more breathtaking with every switchback. Finally, after nearly 2 hours of riding, they emerged onto a high meadow that seemed to touch the sky. The meadow was filled with late-season wildflowers, their colors muted but still beautiful against the golden grass. On one side, the ground dropped away into a steep valley, and on the other, granite peaks rose toward the heavens. The only sounds were the wind and the distant call of a hawk circling overhead. "This is my thinking place," Isaac said as he helped Lily down from her horse. "Found it 2 years ago on a drive. Whenever I am in this area and have got something weighing on me, I come up here. Something about being this high up, this far from everything, makes problems seem smaller." They walked to the edge of the meadow and sat on a fallen log, looking out over the valley. Lily could see for miles, endless forests and distant mountains fading into blue haze. The beauty of it was almost painful. "I grew up in a big city," she said suddenly. "Philadelphia. My father taught at a boys' academy, and we lived in a narrow house that always smelled like coal smoke and other people's cooking. When he died, my mother and I moved to a boarding house because we could not afford to keep the house. Everything was so cramped, so crowded. I used to dream about open spaces like this." "Is that why you came west?" "Partly." Lily took a breath, feeling the weight of her secret pressing down on her. She had carried it alone for so long, but suddenly she wanted to share it, wanted to trust Isaac with the truth. "But mostly I came because I was running from someone." Isaac did not say anything, just waited, and his patience gave her the courage to continue. "There was a man in San Francisco, Thomas Crowley. His father owns half the railroads in California. We met at a party, and he seemed so charming, so interested in me. I was working as a seamstress, barely getting by, and he was this wealthy, handsome man who said he loved me. He asked me to marry him, and I said yes because I thought it was a miracle, thought I was the luckiest girl in the world." Her hands were shaking now, and Isaac reached over and took one of them in his own, holding it firmly. The contact steadied her. "But he was not the man I thought he was. He had a temper, and he was possessive in a way that frightened me. He wanted to control everything I did, everyone I talked to. When I finally worked up the courage to break off the engagement, he lost his mind. He showed up at my boarding house one night with a pistol." Lily's voice broke, and she had to stop and gather herself. Isaac's hand tightened around hers, his thumb stroking gently across her knuckles. "He said if he could not have me, no one would, and then he shot me." The words hung in the air between them. Isaac's face had gone very still, his eyes dark with emotion. "Where?" he asked quietly. Lily raised her free hand to her shoulder, pressing against the scar beneath her blouse. "Here. The doctor said I was lucky he missed anything vital, but I do not feel lucky. I feel like I am still bleeding, like the wound never really healed." "Did they catch him?" "No. He ran, and I ran too. I was too afraid to go to the law. His family has so much money, so much influence. I thought they would make it my fault somehow, say I led him on or rejected him cruelly, and maybe they would have been right. Maybe I did lead him on. Maybe if I had been smarter, seen the signs earlier, none of it would have happened." "Stop." Isaac's voice was firm. "None of that was your fault. A man who shoots a woman because she does not want him is not a man at all. He is a coward and a monster, and you do not bear any blame for his actions." Lily felt tears spilling down her cheeks. "I wanted to forget about it, wanted to pretend it never happened. That is why I came here to this little town in the middle of nowhere. I thought if I could just hide long enough, eventually it would not hurt any more." "Can I see it?" Isaac asked gently. "The scar?" Lily's first instinct was to refuse. The scar was her shame, her secret, the physical reminder of her biggest mistake. But Isaac had listened without judgment, had held her hand through the telling, and she found she wanted him to see, wanted him to know all of her, even the damaged parts. With trembling fingers, she undid the top buttons of her blouse and pulled the fabric aside, exposing her left shoulder. The scar was ugly, a puckered star of twisted skin that stood out pale against her flesh. She had healed, but she would never be unmarked, never be able to pretend the violence had not happened. Isaac was very quiet. Then, slowly, he reached out and traced the edge of the scar with his fingertips, his touch feather-light and infinitely gentle. Lily shivered, but not from fear or revulsion. His touch felt like healing, like benediction. "You survived," Isaac said, his voice thick with emotion. "That is what this says to me. Not that someone hurt you, but that you survived. You are stronger than whatever he did to you, Lily. You are here, living your life, making your own way. That takes more courage than most people ever have to find." The tears came harder now, great wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. Isaac pulled her into his arms, holding her as she cried out months of fear and pain and loneliness. He did not try to shush her or tell her everything would be all right. He just held her, solid and warm and present, and let her grieve. When the storm finally passed, Lily found herself curled against Isaac's chest, his arms still around her, feeling emptied out but also strangely lighter. She had told someone the truth, and the world had not ended. Isaac had not recoiled in disgust or blamed her or done any of the terrible things she had feared. He had simply accepted her story and reminded her of her own strength. "Thank you," she whispered against his shirt. "Nothing to thank me for. There is. You made me feel like maybe I can stop running, like maybe I can start living again." Isaac pulled back just enough to look down at her, and his eyes were full of tenderness. "You can. And if you want, I will be right here with you while you figure out how. But you are leaving. The drive is heading north in 2 days." "I do not have to go with them." Lily's heart stuttered. "What do you mean?" "I have been thinking about it since yesterday. I have been riding cattle drives for 7 years, and I am tired of never staying anywhere long enough to matter. I have been wanting to put down roots, and maybe this is where I am meant to do it. Yosemite is not ranching country, but there are other jobs. I could work as a hand on one of the local spreads, save up for that ranch I want, and maybe if you are willing we could see where this thing between us goes. You would stay here for me. I would stay here for us, but only if that is what you want. I do not want to pressure you, Lily. You have been through too much for that. If you need time, if you need space, I will respect that. But I have got to tell you, I am falling for you. I think I have been falling since the first time I saw you trying to pretend you were not watching me from that window above the saloon." Lily laughed through her tears. "You saw that, I saw that. And I thought, there is a woman with secrets. And then I met you and I thought, there is a woman worth knowing. And now, after today, I think you might be the woman I have been looking for my whole life." It was too much, too fast, and yet somehow it felt exactly right. Lily reached up and cupped Isaac's face in her hands, feeling the rough stubble of his jaw, the warmth of his skin. "I am falling for you too. It terrifies me, but I am. Then let's be terrified together." And then he was kissing her, and Lily was kissing him back. And for the first time since that terrible night 6 months ago, she felt truly alive. Isaac's lips were gentle but sure, and his hands cradled her face like she was something precious. The kiss was sweet and slow and full of promise, and when they finally pulled apart, Lily felt like she was glowing from the inside out. They spent the rest of the day in that high meadow, talking and kissing and making plans. Isaac would tell the trail boss he was leaving the drive. He had already heard about a rancher named Caldwell who needed an experienced hand, and he would ride out tomorrow to see about the job. Lily would keep working at the store, but they would court properly, take their time getting to know each other, and see where things led. "I do not want to rush you," Isaac said as they rode back down the mountain in the late afternoon. "I know you need time to heal, to learn to trust again. I can be patient. I know you can. That is one of the things I love about you." The word slipped out before Lily could stop it, and she felt her cheeks heat. But Isaac just grinned, looking younger and happier than she had ever seen him. "Love, huh? Maybe, possibly, we will see." "We will see," Isaac agreed, but his smile said he already knew. True to his word, Isaac left the cattle drive. The trail boss was sorry to lose him but understood, and the next week Isaac started working for Caldwell's spread, about 5 miles outside of town. The work was hard, long days of mending fences and breaking horses, and all the other endless tasks that came with running a ranch. But Isaac seemed to thrive on it. He came into town most evenings, and he and Lily would walk together after she finished work, talking about their days, sharing their thoughts and dreams. The people of Yosemite noticed, of course. Small towns always noticed when two young people started courting, and there was plenty of speculation and gossip. But most of it was kind, and Mrs. Patterson was positively gleeful, taking full credit for the match even though she had done nothing but offer a bit of encouragement. "I knew that boy was good for you the moment I laid eyes on him," she told Lily one afternoon, beaming with satisfaction. Lily just smiled and let her think it. The truth was, Isaac was good for her in ways she was still discovering. He made her laugh with his dry humor and terrible jokes. He listened when she talked, really listened, remembering small details and bringing them up later. He was patient with her hesitations and fears, never pushing her further than she was ready to go. And he was affectionate in small, constant ways that made her feel cherished. A hand on her back as they walked, his coat around her shoulders when the evening turned cold. The way he looked at her, like she was the most important thing in his world. Lily found herself healing in his presence, the tight knot of fear that had lived in her chest for so long gradually loosening. She still had nightmares sometimes, dreams where Thomas found her and finished what he started, but when she woke gasping in the dark, she could remind herself that she was safe, that she had survived, that she had a future worth living. October arrived, and with it came cooler weather and the first hints of autumn color in the high country. Isaac took her riding one Sunday to see the aspens turning gold, and as they stood beneath the shimmering trees, he took her hand and said, "I got a letter from my mother yesterday." "Is everything all right?" "Yeah. She is fine, my father is doing better, my sisters are all causing trouble in the way sisters do, but I told her about you in my last letter, and she wrote back saying she wants to meet you. She is thrilled I found someone special." Lily felt a flutter of anxiety. "You told your family about me." "Of course I did. You are important to me, I want them to know about you." Isaac squeezed her hand. "I know meeting family is a big step and I am not trying to rush you, but maybe someday when you are ready, we could take a trip to Missouri. I think you would like my mother, and I know she would love you." The idea of meeting Isaac's family was both exciting and terrifying. It meant being part of something, belonging somewhere, and Lily had been alone for so long she had almost forgotten what that felt like. "I would like that. Someday." "No rush," Isaac assured her. "We have got all the time in the world. But time, as it turned out, was less predictable than they thought. It was a Wednesday in late October when the man came to town, riding a fine horse and wearing expensive clothes that marked him as someone from the city. Lily was helping a customer at the general store when he walked in, and the moment she saw him, her blood ran cold. It was not Thomas, but she recognized him anyway, recognized the sharp features and calculating eyes. It was James Crowley, Thomas's older brother, and if he was here, it meant only one thing: they had found her. James did not notice her at first, busy asking Mrs. Patterson questions about lodging and local establishments. Lily tried to slip into the back room, but her movement caught his attention, and when their eyes met, she saw recognition flash across his face. "Lily Donovan," he said, his voice cold and smooth. "Or should I say, Miss Donovan, I have been looking for you, Mrs." Patterson looked between them, confused. "You know each other?" "We have never met," Lily said, forcing her voice to remain steady. "But I know his family." "Then you know why I am here." James moved closer, and Lily fought the urge to back away. "My brother has been inconsolable since you disappeared. He wants to see you, to apologize for his behavior that night. He has been receiving treatment for his problems with drink and temper, and he wants to make amends." It was all Lily could do not to laugh at the absurdity of it. Amends. As if an apology could erase what Thomas had done, could heal the scar on her shoulder and the ones on her soul. "I do not want to see him," she said firmly. "Please leave me alone." "Now, Miss Donovan, do not be hasty. Thomas has changed. He loves you, and he wants another chance to prove he can be the man you deserve. And if you will not do it for him, think about your future. My family has resources, connections. We could make your life very comfortable, or if you continue to refuse, we could make it very difficult." The threat was barely veiled, and Lily felt old fear rising up to choke her. But beneath the fear was anger, hot and righteous. She had run once. She had spent 6 months looking over her shoulder, afraid of her own shadow. She was not going to run again. "Get out," she said, her voice low but fierce. "Get out of this store and get out of this town. I want nothing to do with your brother or your family. If you come near me again, I will go to the law." James's expression hardened. "I do not think you will." "You did not go to the law in San Francisco, did you? And we both know why. My brother is a man of standing from a respected family. You are a nobody, a seamstress who got ideas above her station. Who do you think the law would believe?" "They would believe me." Everyone turned. Isaac stood in the doorway of the store, his stance wide and his hand resting on the pistol at his hip. He looked dangerous in a way Lily had never seen before, all easy charm stripped away to reveal steel beneath. "Who the hell are you?" James demanded. "I am the man asking you to leave." Isaac's voice was calm, but there was an edge to it that made even James hesitate. "The lady has asked you to go, and if you know what is good for you, you will do it right now." "This is none of your concern, Cowboy. Lily is my concern, which makes you my concern." Isaac stepped into the store, and despite being dressed in work clothes and covered in dust from the ranch, he somehow seemed to fill the space with his presence. "And if you threaten her again, if you so much as look at her wrong, I promise you will regret it." James looked between Isaac and Lily, and whatever he saw in their faces made him recalculate. "This is not over," he said to Lily. "Thomas will not give up. He loves you." "That is not love," Lily said quietly. "Love does not hurt. Love does not threaten. Love does not shoot someone and then send family members to intimidate them into coming back. If your brother loved me, he would respect my wishes and leave me in peace." For just a moment, something that might have been shame flickered across James's face. Then it was gone, replaced by cold aristocratic disdain. He turned and walked out of the store without another word, and Lily sagged against the counter, her legs suddenly weak. Isaac was at her side immediately, his arms around her, holding her up. Mrs. Patterson stood staring, her hand pressed to her chest, clearly shaken by what she had witnessed. "Lily, dear, what on earth was that about?" Lily looked at the older woman, this kind person who had given her a job and asked no questions, and decided she deserved the truth. "That man's brother is the reason I came to Yosemite. He courted me in San Francisco, and when I broke off our engagement, he shot me. I have been running from him for 6 months, and now he has found me." Mrs. Patterson's eyes went wide with shock and sympathy. "Oh, you poor child. Why did you not say something? We would have helped you." "I was ashamed and afraid. I thought if I just hid well enough, eventually he would forget about me and move on." "Men like that never move on," Isaac said grimly. "They are too used to getting what they want." "But you are not alone anymore, Lily. We will figure this out together." Over the next few days, it seemed like the whole town rallied around Lily. Mrs. Patterson told her husband, who told the sheriff, and soon everyone knew the story of the woman who had fled an abusive suitor and the wealthy family now trying to drag her back. The sheriff, a grizzled man named Dutch Parsons, promised to keep an eye out for any trouble, and several of the local men made it clear they would not tolerate outsiders coming into their town and threatening one of their own. James Crowley checked into the hotel and stayed there, making no further attempts to contact Lily directly, but his presence was a constant threat, hanging over everything. Isaac moved into the room next to Lily's above the saloon, claiming he wanted to be close in case anything happened. The landlady raised her eyebrows but did not object, perhaps understanding the unusual circumstances. "He is waiting for me to crack," Lily said one evening as she and Isaac sat together in her small room. "He thinks if he just stays here, eventually I will give in and agree to see Thomas just to get rid of him." "That is not going to happen," Isaac said firmly. "You do not owe Thomas or his brother anything. But what if they do not give up? What if they stay here forever, or worse, what if Thomas comes himself?" The old fear was rising again, threatening to drown her. "Maybe I should just leave, go somewhere else, start over again." "No." Isaac took her hands in his grip strong and steady. "No more running, Lily. You have built a life here. You have friends, a job, a future. We have a future. You are not giving that up because some spoiled rich man cannot handle rejection." "But what can I do? I am nobody, just like James said. They have money and influence, and I have nothing. You have the truth. And you have me." Isaac lifted one of her hands to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. "I will not let them hurt you again. I swear it." Lily wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that love and rightness would be enough to protect her. But she had learned the hard way that the world did not always work that way, that sometimes the bad people won simply because they had more power. The answer came from an unexpected source. 2 days later, a well-dressed woman arrived in Yosemite on the stagecoach, checked into the hotel, and asked to speak with Lily Donovan. When word reached the general store, Lily felt her stomach drop, assuming it was another member of the Crowley family. But Mrs. Patterson, who had gone to see who the woman was, came back with a strange expression on her face. "Her name is Margaret Hastings," she said. "She says she is a friend of yours from San Francisco." Lily did not recognize the name, but something made her agree to see the woman. They met at the hotel restaurant, and Lily was shocked to discover that Margaret Hastings was actually Margaret Reynolds, one of Thomas Crowley's former fiancées. A woman Lily had heard about but never met. Margaret was older than Lily, perhaps 30, with dark hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. She invited Lily to sit and ordered tea, and once they were alone, she leaned forward and spoke in a low, urgent voice. "I know who you are and what Thomas did to you, and I am here to help you stop him." Lily stared at her, not understanding. How do you know what happened? Because something similar happened to me 3 years ago. Thomas and I were engaged, and when I tried to end things, he became violent. He did not shoot me, but he beat me badly enough that I could not hide the bruises. Like you, I was too afraid to go to the law. His family paid me to keep quiet, gave me enough money to leave San Francisco and start over. I took it because I was terrified and had no other options. Then why are you here now? Margaret's expression hardened. Because I heard through mutual acquaintances that Thomas had done it again, had shot another young woman who rejected him. And I realized that if I stayed silent, he would keep doing this, keep hurting women, because he knows his family's money will always protect him. I cannot live with that on my conscience. What can we do? You said yourself his family's money protects him. Money can buy a lot of things, but it cannot buy testimony from multiple women. If we both go to the law, if we both tell our stories, it becomes much harder for the Crowleys to dismiss us as hysterical or vindictive, and I have kept evidence. Margaret opened her reticule and pulled out a small bundle of letters. These are from Thomas, written after I tried to end our engagement. They are full of threats and obsessive declarations. They show his state of mind clearly. Lily felt a spark of hope for the first time in days. Do you really think it would work? I think it is our best chance. The sheriff here seems like a decent man, and this is not San Francisco, where the Crowleys have judges and politicians in their pockets. If we act quickly, before they have time to exert influence, we might actually see justice done. They went to see Sheriff Parsons that afternoon, and with them went Isaac, Mrs. Patterson, and several other prominent townspeople who wanted to show their support. Margaret and Lily told their stories in detail, and Margaret presented the letters as evidence of Thomas's dangerous obsession. The sheriff listened carefully, his weathered face growing grimmer as the tale unfolded. "This is ugly business," he said when they had finished. "And you are right that in a big city like San Francisco, money can make problems disappear. But out here, we do things different. If a man hurts a woman, I do not care how rich his daddy is, he answers for it." He stood up and reached for his hat. "I am going to have a talk with Mr. James Crowley, and then I am going to send some telegrams to San Francisco, let the law there know what I have learned." They might not have been interested when it was just one woman's word against a wealthy man's, but with 2 women and written evidence, that changes things. James Crowley left town that very evening, no doubt going to inform his family of this new development. Margaret stayed, wanting to see things through, and in the days that followed, there was a flurry of telegraph messages between Yosemite and San Francisco. The story that emerged was uglier than Lily had imagined. Thomas had a history of volatile behavior toward women, behavior that his family had been covering up and paying off for years. With Margaret and Lily's testimony, plus the evidence Margaret had preserved, the district attorney in San Francisco finally felt he had enough to bring charges. A warrant was issued for Thomas Crowley's arrest on charges of assault with a deadly weapon and attempted murder. The Crowley family fought it, of course, hiring expensive lawyers and calling in favors. But the case had attracted attention from the newspapers, and public opinion was not on their side. The image of wealthy men literally getting away with shooting women because of their family connections outraged people, and that outrage created pressure for justice. It took 3 months for the case to come to trial. During that time, Lily and Margaret both had to travel to San Francisco to give depositions and meet with the district attorney. Isaac went with Lily, taking time off from his job at the ranch to support her. The trip was difficult, bringing back memories Lily would have preferred to keep buried, but having Isaac beside her made it bearable. The trial itself was grueling. Thomas's lawyers tried every tactic they could think of, painting both women as vindictive shrews who had led their client on, and then cried victim when he reacted emotionally. They suggested Lily had shot herself for attention and money. They questioned Margaret's moral character and implied she had fabricated the letters for revenge. It was ugly and painful, but the physical evidence was damning, and more importantly, the jury could see Thomas Crowley for what he really was: cold, entitled, and utterly lacking in remorse. He was convicted on all charges and sentenced to 15 years in prison. The Crowley family's influence managed to get him sent to a relatively comfortable facility rather than the worst of the state prisons. But it was still prison, still punishment, still justice. When the verdict was read, Lily felt something inside her finally break free. The fear that had haunted her for over a year, the constant looking over her shoulder, the nightmares that woke her in the dark, all of it began to recede. Thomas could not hurt her anymore. He could not hurt anyone anymore. She had survived and she had won. Margaret hugged her fiercely after the verdict. "We did it," she whispered. "We really did it." "Thank you," Lily said, tears streaming down her face. "I could not have done this without you." "Yes, you could have. You are stronger than you know, but I am glad we did it together." The two women parted as friends, promising to stay in touch. Margaret was returning to Boston, where she had built a new life for herself as a teacher. Lily was returning to Yosemite, to the small town that had become home, to the man who had stood by her through everything. Isaac was waiting when she came out of the courthouse, and she walked straight into his arms, holding him tight. "It is over," she said. "Really over. I know. You were so brave in there, Lily. I am so proud of you." They took the stage coach back to Yosemite, and Lily spent most of the journey sleeping against Isaac's shoulder, exhausted but at peace in a way she had not been since before she met Thomas Crowley. When they finally rolled into town, it felt like coming home in the truest sense of the word. Life settled back into a comfortable rhythm after that. Lily returned to work at the general store, and Isaac continued working at the Caldwell Ranch. Their courtship deepened, moving from the tentative exploration of new feelings into something solid and real. Isaac proposed on a Sunday in December, back in the high meadow where Lily had first told him about her past. He did it simply, pulling a plain gold band from his pocket and asking if she would do him the honor of becoming his wife. Lily said yes without hesitation, and they were married in February of 1879, in a small ceremony at the town church with half of Yosemite in attendance. Mrs. Patterson cried through the whole thing, and the sheriff gave Lily away since she had no family of her own. Lily wore a dress she had sewn herself, simple white cotton with lace at the collar, and Isaac wore his best shirt and a new vest. They were both nervous and giddy, stumbling over their vows and laughing at their own awkwardness. But when the preacher pronounced them man and wife, and Isaac kissed her in front of God and everyone, Lily felt a joy so pure it almost hurt. This good, decent man was hers now, and she was his, and they had a whole future stretching out before them full of possibility. They rented a small house on the edge of town, just 2 rooms and a kitchen, but it was theirs. Isaac continued working at the Caldwell Ranch, and Lily kept her job at the store, both of them saving every penny toward the dream of their own ranch someday. It was not easy, scrimping and budgeting and doing without, but they were happy in a way that had nothing to do with material comfort. Lily learned what real love looked like in those early months of marriage. It was Isaac getting up early to make coffee before she woke. It was the way he listened when she talked about her day, asking questions and remembering details. It was how he held her when the nightmares occasionally returned, patient and comforting until she felt safe again. It was the laughter they shared over small things, the way they worked together in their garden, the quiet evenings spent reading by lamplight. And it was the physical intimacy that grew between them, tentative at first because of Lily's past trauma, but gradually blossoming into something beautiful. Isaac was patient and gentle, always making sure she felt safe, never pushing her further than she was ready to go. He treated her body like it was precious, kissing the scar on her shoulder and reminding her that it was just a mark, that it did not define her, that she was so much more than the worst thing that had ever happened to her. Summer came, and with it came news that changed everything. Mr. Caldwell, who owned the ranch where Isaac worked, decided to retire and move back east to be near his daughter. He offered to sell the ranch to Isaac for a price that was more than fair, knowing the younger man had been a loyal and hardworking employee. With their savings and a loan from the bank, Isaac and Lily were able to make it happen. At 22 and 24 years old, respectively, they found themselves the owners of 300 acres of grazing land, a small herd of cattle, and a ranch house that needed work but was sound. It was everything Isaac had dreamed of, and more than Lily had ever imagined possible. They worked hard that first year, dawn to dusk, and sometimes beyond. Isaac managed the cattle and did the heavy labor while Lily handled the books, kept the house, and helped with the endless smaller tasks that came with running a ranch. They hired a couple of hands to help with the cattle, young men who lived in the bunkhouse and ate meals at Lily's table. It was exhausting and demanding, but it was theirs, built by their own hands and their own efforts. By the spring of 1880, the ranch was thriving. The herd had grown, they had paid down a significant portion of the loan, and they were starting to plan for the future. That was when Lily discovered she was pregnant. She told Isaac one evening after dinner, nervous about how he would react. They had not exactly planned for a baby this soon, and she worried that the timing would be difficult given how much work the ranch required. But Isaac's face lit up with a joy that erased all her doubts. "A baby," he breathed, pulling her into his arms. "Lily, that is wonderful, that is perfect. You are not worried about the timing." "Why would I be worried? We are going to have a child together. That is a blessing, not a problem." He pulled back to look at her, his dark eyes shining. "You are going to be an amazing mother. And you are going to be an amazing father." Their daughter was born in December of 1880, a healthy baby girl with Isaac's dark hair and Lily's blue eyes. They named her Rose, because she was beautiful and perfect and represented new life blooming from difficult soil. Isaac was besotted from the first moment he held her, this tiny person who was half him and half Lily. And Lily fell in love all over again, watching her strong, capable husband become gentle and soft with their infant daughter. The years that followed were full of the small joys and challenges that came with building a life. The ranch continued to prosper, allowing them to expand the herd and improve the property. Rose grew from a baby into a toddler and then a little girl, bright and curious and beloved by everyone who knew her. In 1883, they had a son, Thomas, named not for Lily's attacker but for Isaac's father, who had passed away the previous year. And in 1885, another daughter arrived, Emma, completing their family. Lily sometimes thought about how different her life had turned out from what she had once imagined. If someone had told that frightened 21-year-old girl bleeding on a hotel room floor that in just a few years she would be happily married with 3 children and a prosperous ranch, she would not have believed them. The journey from that dark night to this bright life had been long and painful, but it had been worth it. She still bore the scar on her shoulder, still saw it every time she bathed or dressed, but it no longer filled her with shame or fear. Instead, it reminded her of her own strength, of the fact that she had survived the worst that life could throw at her and had come out the other side. Isaac had been right that day in the meadow. The scar did not say that someone had hurt her. It said she had survived. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Isaac took Lily back to that high meadow where he had proposed. They left the children with Mrs. Patterson, who was more than happy to spoil her honorary grandchildren for an afternoon, and rode up the mountain trail just as they had done so many times before. The meadow was golden in the late summer light, and they sat on the same fallen log where they had sat a decade earlier, looking out over the valley. They were older now, marked by years of hard work and raising children, but Lily thought they were happier too, settled into themselves and each other in a way that only time and experience could bring. "Do you ever regret it?" Isaac asked, taking her hand. "Staying here, marrying me, choosing this life?" Lily turned to look at him, at this man who had seen her at her lowest and loved her anyway, who had stood by her through trial and trauma, who had given her a home and a family and a love that felt as steady as the mountains around them. "Never," she said firmly. "Not for a single moment. You saved me, Isaac, not just from Thomas but from giving up on myself. You reminded me that I was worth saving, that I deserved good things. I would not trade this life for anything." "You saved yourself," Isaac said, lifting her hand to his lips. "I just had the good fortune to be there while you did it, and to get to love you through it all. We saved each other then. I can live with that." They kissed there in the meadow, with the whole valley spread out below them and their whole future still ahead of them. And when they finally rode back down the mountain as the sun set behind the peaks, Lily felt nothing but gratitude for the winding path that had brought her here, to this place, to this man, to this life. The ranch continued to grow over the years. By 1890, they had one of the largest herds in the area and had bought an additional 100 acres from a retiring neighbor. Their children grew up healthy and happy, learning to ride and rope and all the skills necessary for ranch life. Rose proved to have her mother's head for numbers and took over managing the ranch's accounts when she was just 16. Thomas, named for his grandfather but called Tommy to avoid confusion, inherited his father's way with horses and could gentle even the wildest Mustang. Emma, the baby, was fierce and fearless, often found climbing trees or racing her older siblings across the pastures. Lily had worried at first about how to tell her children about her past, about the violence that had marked her before they were born. But when Rose turned 13 and started asking questions about the scar she had glimpsed on her mother's shoulder, Lily decided it was time for honesty. She sat all 3 children down one evening and told them the story, not sparing the difficult parts, but also not dwelling on the horror. She told them about Thomas Crowley and the night he shot her. She told them about running and hiding and being afraid. And then she told them about meeting their father, about learning to trust again, about finding the courage to fight for justice. "The point is," she said, looking at each of their faces in turn, "bad things happen sometimes. People can hurt you in ways you never imagined, but that does not mean you give up. You survive, you heal, and you build a life worth living, and you never let fear control you." Rose, wise beyond her years, asked, "Does it still scare you sometimes?" "Sometimes," Lily admitted. "But then I look at all of this, at your father, at you 3, at the life we have built, and I remember that I won. I did not let him destroy me. That is the real victory." The children absorbed this, processing in their own ways. Later that night, after they had gone to bed, Isaac found Lily standing on the porch, looking out at the land that stretched away into darkness. "You told them," he said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "I did. I thought they should know, not just about what happened to me, but about the fact that you can survive terrible things and still have a beautiful life. That is because of you, your strength, your courage. You have given them an incredible example." Lily leaned back into her husband's embrace, feeling safe and loved and at peace. We gave them an example, together. The years continued to pass, marked by the rhythm of the seasons and the milestones of family life. Rose married a young doctor who set up practice in Yosemite, giving Lily and Isaac their first grandchild in 1898. Tommy took over more of the ranch operations as Isaac's hair turned gray and his joints started to protest the hard physical labor. Emma, true to her wild nature, moved to San Francisco to study law, determined to help other women who found themselves in the situations her mother had once faced. Lily and Isaac grew old together, their love deepening into something comfortable and enduring. They still rode up to that high meadow on their anniversary every year, marveling at how quickly time had passed and how full their lives had become. The ranch was prosperous. Their children were happy and successful, and they had a growing collection of grandchildren who kept them young with their energy and laughter. On a spring day in 1905, Lily sat on the porch of the ranch house, watching Isaac play with their youngest grandchild, a toddler named Sarah who was Rose's third daughter. Isaac was 60 years old now, his dark hair streaked with silver, his face lined from years of sun and wind. But he still moved with grace, still had that quiet strength that had first drawn Lily to him all those years ago. Sarah squealed with delight as Isaac swung her up onto his shoulders, and Lily felt her heart swell with love and gratitude. This was what happiness looked like. Not the absence of pain or struggle, but the presence of love and purpose and connection. She had survived violence and fear and trauma, and she had built this beautiful, ordinary, extraordinary life on the other side of it. Isaac caught her watching and grinned, that boyish smile that still made her pulse quicken even after 26 years of marriage. He carried Sarah over to the porch and set her down, then dropped into the chair beside Lily with a contented sigh. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, reaching for her hand. "Everything," Lily said. "Nothing, just how lucky I am. We both are." They sat in comfortable silence, watching Sarah toddle around the yard, chasing butterflies and laughing at her own shadow. Lily thought about the scared young woman she had been, the one who had hidden her scar and believed she was broken beyond repair. She wished she could go back and tell that girl that everything was going to be all right, that survival was just the beginning, that the best parts of life were still ahead. But maybe that girl would not have believed her. Maybe she needed to walk the long road herself, needed to learn her own strength through trial and error. Maybe the journey was as important as the destination. "I love you," Lily said, squeezing Isaac's hand. "I love you too," he replied. "Always have, always will." And there, on the porch of the ranch they had built together, surrounded by the evidence of the life they had created, Lily finally allowed herself to believe what Isaac had told her all those years ago in a high mountain meadow. She had survived. And more than that, she had thrived. The scar on her shoulder, once a source of shame, had become a badge of honor, a reminder that she was stronger than anything life could throw at her. Isaac had traced it with gentle fingers and spoken words of truth, and she had learned to see herself through his eyes rather than through the lens of her trauma. As the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose, Lily leaned her head on her husband's shoulder and watched their granddaughter play. This was her happy ending, not a fairy tale finish but something better, something real and hard-won and precious. She had hidden a pistol scar on her shoulder, afraid of what it said about her. The cowboy had traced it and said, "You survived." And in saying those words, he had given her permission to do more than just survive. He had given her permission to live. And she had lived fully, loved deeply, and built a legacy that would outlast them both. The ranch would pass to their children and grandchildren. The story of how it began would be told and retold, and maybe somewhere in the future, another scared young woman would hear about Lily Donovan Sullivan and find the courage to believe that survival was not the end of the story. It was just the beginning. As darkness fell and the stars began to appear overhead, Isaac stood and helped Lily to her feet. They collected little Sarah and walked inside together, into the home they had made, surrounded by the family they had created, living the life they had fought for. And Lily, who had once believed she would never be whole again, felt nothing but gratitude for every step of the journey that had brought her here, to this moment, to this love, to this beautiful, imperfect, absolutely perfect life. The end came not with drama but with peace. Isaac passed away in his sleep in the winter of 1920 at the age of 75, with Lily holding his hand. She grieved deeply, but she did not break. She had learned long ago that she was stronger than her pain, and though she missed him every day, she carried on, surrounded by her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Lily lived to be 86 years old, sharp-minded and fierce until the end. She died in the same ranch house where she had raised her family, in the bed she had shared with Isaac for decades, with Rose holding one hand and Emma holding the other. Her last words were, "Tell them I survived, tell them I lived, tell them it was all worth it," and they did. The story of Lily Donovan Sullivan, the woman who had survived a shooting and found love in the Wild West, became family legend, passed down through generations. The ranch remained in the family for nearly a century, a testament to what two people could build when they refused to let the past destroy their future. And somewhere in the family archives, in a wooden box kept safe through the years, was a faded photograph of a young couple standing in front of a modest ranch house. The woman is smiling, really smiling, and the man has his arm around her shoulders. And if you looked closely enough, if you knew the story, you could just make out the edge of a scar on the woman's shoulder where her blouse had slipped slightly. But it was not the scar that caught your attention in the photograph. It was the love and joy and hope shining from both their faces, the evidence of two people who had found each other against all odds and built something beautiful from the ashes of pain. That was the real story. Not the violence that had marked Lily, but the love that had healed her. Not the shooting, but the survival. Not the scar, but the life that came after. And in the end, that was all that really mattered.